Hello and welcome to For the Love of Oats. I am joined with my co-host Vicky Masita.
Hello! Yay! Nobody's really that interested in hearing from me, but hi.
How
We
are
are
we?
back.
How are
All
you?
right, all right. I am all right. I am wearing my "Don't Be an Arsehole" t-shirt,
Yeah.
which I really do enjoy. And
Yeah.
I'm
Do
eating.
you want to show it?
Huh? Can I show it?
Yeah.
If I can twist. There you go.
There we go. That's like an actual portrait of Vicky.
It's a portrait of me, and it says "Don't be an arsehole" on it because that's my catchphrase. And all of the t-shirts are still available to order, in white and black.
Nice man.
So,
Nice.
should you wish to have a "Don't Be an Arsehole" t-shirt with a picture of me as a big superhero in the back, get onto the Titan Coaching website and you can order it. Oh dear.
So, so what made? Where did you come up with the phrase "Don't be an arsehole"? Were you just thinking, there's too many arseholes about?
You know what? Honestly, that is all it was. It was the fact that there was a lot of arseholes happening, and not just in like the coaching industry or the bodybuilding industry or anything like that. It was just the fact that the world can be full of arseholes
Yeah.
in social media, in the BBC, in the politicians, in road rage. And there are so many walks of life that people are being arseholes that it was just one of those things that I always used to say. And it was just, do you know what? Just don't be an arsehole. You will be a much nicer, friendlier person if you are just not an arsehole. So that's what happened. I said it once on social media, and yeah, it just kind of stuck. So
Yeah. Well, there we go.
that was it.
Do you think that more people are becoming arseholes nowadays? Like, do you think like the arsehole ratio is just climbing up?
Yeah, yes and no. I think it's because people just aren't listening to me enough. So when I say listen, just don't be an arsehole, they just don't listen that much. And they just continue to be an arsehole, which makes me very sad. But it depends on where you're looking at it. I do think that in the fitness industry, there's quite a lot of arseholes going on around.
Yeah.
Um, I can give examples, but examples, that was very posh, wasn't it? Fucking hell. I can give examples of arseholery behavior without giving names out. But one of the biggest things that I have found that is a big arsehole thing in the world is giving specific amounts of gear usage for specific people. And they're literally putting it all out on social media saying what they took, how much they took, when they took it, etc., in order to achieve certain results. And personally, I just think that that's a really silly, naive thing to do because people who are very young, just getting into the industry, can automatically have a look at that and just go, okay, well, I'll run that because there's complete dosages and things like that as well on there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, what I've seen are YouTubers, and again, I'm not going to name any names, so I don't get any shit. But I remember seeing this one YouTuber in particular, and he was doing a prep, and he was just having such a dangerous approach with his nutrition,
Mm.
and such a dangerous, like he just went through all his drugs, and they were all dangerous, and he was like, "Yep, this is what you got to do to be in shape, man, to compete in bodybuilding." And I watched that, and I was like, "Wow, this guy is looked up to," and I just looked at it, I thought, "Wow, this is diabolical," because
Mm.
people are genuinely going to look at it I go, wow, okay, that must be what you do. But like it's not at all. It's not at all that you have to do that. That is an example of how not to do it. But because this guy's got the following and people will listen, you know, and
Is that was that a recent YouTube or was that like years ago?
a little while ago. But I have seen multiple videos a little bit like that, and there could be someone posting YouTube, and just because they're relatively new, or they're just not big on YouTube, or they just don't have that platform, they could be talking sense, and people just go, "Whew," not just completely just sleep on it. And I find it quite interesting. More following, the bigger the platform, doesn't necessarily mean that they're information is better,
Mm.
than someone with a lesser platform. And I feel like people look at the following and go, right, that following is credibility to his advice, like
Yeah,
I'm going to trust this person because else would other people be following him? And
absolutely.
the domino effect, and other people probably do the same.
This
And
is it. I mean, I think a lot of people have a big following because of the simple fact that they're an athlete. So, like, say, for example, the athlete will always have a bigger following than the coach who coaches them,
yeah,
which again, just kind of like, it almost surprises me so much because the athlete may not actually necessarily be a coach, but people follow them because they want to see what he does or she does.
yeah, yeah,
And I haven't got a problem with people actually putting out the drugs that they are taking in order to get to a certain level, because it does obviously open people's eyes and it makes them non-naive. In order to, reach a specific potential, you are going to obviously have to delve into certain things. But what I don't agree with is the amounts that they put on and the dosages that they put on. So it's all about honesty, but to a certain level. You want to be honest with what you do as a pro bodybuilder or a pro strongman or whatever like that. But obviously, you've just got to be a little bit savvy considering the amount of following that you do have.
yeah,
And like I said, the coaches don't seem to actually get the same kind of following, and this is the same the world over, I think, and across the fitness industry. It's not just bodybuilding. I think it's everywhere.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I remember when I started sharing that I was being assisted and things like that, and I was talking about what I was taking and things like that, and I had an influx of people just asking me questions. What should I take? What should I do? And and it's crazy because some of these people, like at that time, I thought I'm not in a position to be giving advice, and then I was like, and then they tell me what they're thinking of doing. I'm like, wow, okay, well, I definitely know they shouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been in a little bit of a position where when people are asking me stuff, I'm like, well, okay, don't do that. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to specifically tell you what to do, especially if I don't have a lot of context. But I can tell you now, if you're a young guy and you're starting, you do not need to touch trend.
Yeah.
It's a very that is a very simple thing to know. You should not,
Yeah.
and you should not start off on like high amounts and stuff like that.
Absolutely. It's knowing when to start as well, realistically, because
It-
like some people can just about get into the industry or just about get into the gym. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I just want to take gear. It's like you don't even know how to fucking train yet.
yeah,
And your diet isn't on point. So
you know what? That's actually a good point to touch on actually, because a lot of people aren't too sure of when to start gear, and a lot of people start it sooner than they should do.
yeah.
Um, and a lot of people I do say, you want to wait a bit, you want to sort of have, a lot of people start drugs because they want to get into bodybuilding. I'm like, wait, see if you enjoy bodybuilding, and then make that big life decision, you know,
Mm.
and just take your time with it. You don't want to just rush into it. Like a lot of young guys, I don't think anyone under the age of 20 should really be even considering it.
Well, you've got the amount of testosterone as a 20-year-old that's heightened anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, fine. You're not going to be having 500 milligram of testosterone as like a baseline or what have you,
yeah.
unless you're on Waterhouse because his natural
Oh, yeah,
testosterone levels are
like,
ridiculous. But I think when it comes to it, anabolics should be, I mean, it's called assistance for a reason. So you should literally use them as assistants. And
exactly, yeah.
yeah, so you should always have a baseline of training nailed, and you should always have your nutritional intake nailed before you even start to put a little bit of a sprinkling over the top.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, people. when they're young, shouldn't even be looking into steroids. They shouldn't be, because you shouldn't be getting the idea. You shouldn't have that idea in their head. If they're going to research something, research your nutrition and your training.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
anytime you're thinking of considering doing research to steroids, just put more research into nutrition training. And then once you've had a good amount of years doing that, you still think that's something you want to do, then definitely heavily research it. But like I say, under 20 years old, definitely under 20 years old. I'm not saying when you reach to 20, then start jabbing loads of gear. I'm not saying that, but definitely under 20 years old, you shouldn't be doing that. So if you're a young lad and you're watching this and you're like, I'm thinking of starting something, don't.
Yeah, just
No
stop.
need. No need. One of the best things I did, I nearly fucked this up, and it's actually something I haven't actually told any people. This is a podcast exclusive.
Ooh!
When I was, when I was 18, before I went into competing, naturally, I thought to myself, I'm going to take a bit of Anivore, I want to take a bit of Anivore because I just heard people in the gym, and I saw some people take some Anivore. It's like, yeah, this is what you need to start on and whatever. I'm glad that I did not. I decided to compete naturally. I did that, and I learned a lot more along the way. I was too young because I was 18. And again, I found my love for bodybuilding. I pretty much ingrained that love as well. And I knew I did 2 competitive seasons. I've done 9 shows naturally, so that was enough experience for me to go, right, okay, I want to do bodybuilding as a career. And during that time, my training and nutrition knowledge went up, and my natural foundation was built, and I was in a much, much better position, physically and educationally to start assistance. So, but like, because where my mind's at, I know what it's like. I can relate to these people who are young and they go, I want to start this. And because I was almost that guy, and I could have fucked it, I could have done something very silly. I'm glad I didn't. But
Yeah, which is good. Because like you said, you've got some genetic abnormalities anyway in terms of like growing muscle tissue, because you're just genetically gifted in terms of building some tissue when you are natural. Yeah, because I mean, you look at you when you were a teen, and I mean, okay, fine, fair enough, when you were a teen when you were smaller, but then when you went into your second season, the difference that you had in terms of those 2 season comparisons were like, holy shit, okay, so you managed to grow really bloody well. It's almost like you caught a really good rebound from your first natural show and then going into your natural off season. And then all of a sudden you just kind of blew up. But you could see that even at your age, your density was very, very good. And you had a nice structure. So it's almost like you were made for bodybuilding in terms of a structure, which is obviously a nice thing. Whereas you see other people who look like potatoes and they've got to work really fucking hard to just get a little bit of manageable muscle on there and then hope that they just don't lose it when they diet down.
yeah. At what point would you say someone's genetically gifted? Like what? Like
How long is a piece of string at the end of the day?
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, it's a very tricky one to answer, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Like, because I think it's just a lot of people have different perspectives of what is genetically gifted. I see someone who's genetically gifted as like fucking, I don't know, someone like Lee Priest, where he was young and he just like blew up and he just touched weight, and someone like probably like Keefe, for example,
Yeah, but you see, with Keefe, he's got nice structure and everything like that as well, but he also trains like a fucking animal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's like, okay, has he got the genetics? I don't know, because he's always trained like an animal, and he's always put everything into his bodybuilding career, like everything, and he's always got the intensity there.
Yeah.
So for him, I think his gift is his intensity and his consistency in that intensity. If he didn't have that consistency, would he be genetically gifted? I don't know. Honestly, it's a very difficult one to answer with him.
I believe because he works hard, his genetics have gone further. And I feel like he's exploited his genetics with working hard. So I would, it's like it's two great things when hard work meets, genetics, and quite often when that happens, people go straight up, plenty of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's very, very sort of prominent. You see that happening, and a lot of people would look at someone and go, I don't think you're natural, but they will be. It's because it's very hard to be genetically gifted. It's very rare, should I say, to be gifted and to work hard,
Yeah.
and to want to go into bodybuilding and stuff like that.
It's almost a shame when you can like miss a gift, isn't it? Or you just don't want to actually fulfill that full potential as well. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to use my son as an example. He started gymnastics when he was 3 years old, and he's 12 now. And he was honestly astronomically good. Like he was part of the boys squad, and he was just so strong. And obviously his dad was an international gymnast at the same time. But it got to the point where when he was like 9 or 10 or something along those lines, his mates were saying, oh, do you want to come and play football? And he was like, oh no, I've got to go to gym. But he was an elite gymnast, at 9 years old, he was an elite gymnast because he was so amazing at it.
Yeah.
And he loved it. He was passionate about it and everything. But I mean, he was training 3 hours a day after school and all day on a Saturday. So he was training like that all the time, and he was really working hard for it, but he was so good. He was getting medals and all the rest of it. But then he just basically turned around and said, I want to play football with my mates. And that was that. And it's just like, I was distraught. I mean, Scott wasn't, because Scott lived his life as an elite gymnast. So he actually lived in a place called Lilleshall, which is literally, he just lived as a gymnast. So he trained 8 hours a day, he ate there, he lived there, and all the rest of it. And he said, to be perfectly honest, if he doesn't want to do it, I'm not going to pressure him to do it, because it is a hell of a lot of pressure. But I was distraught because he was so good. And it's like, you can see that gift that he has. And it was a beautiful outlet for him to do at the same time, because being a boy, he's running around like some fucking psycho every bloody day. So it's quite good as an outlet for his energy. But yeah, he decided to give it up because he couldn't go and play football with his mates.
Yeah, I understand that. that, especially, it's a very tricky one, isn't it, gymnastics, because you're introduced to it at a young age.
Yeah.
And
there are no old gymnasts around because they're broken by the time they're 28.
yeah, you can't go to say for example, bodybuilding. I did my first show at 18. I started training at 16, and that's relatively young as well,
Oh.
But for gymnasts, that would be quite old to start,
Oh yeah, they'd be like middle range to their career at the moment. I mean, there's the Olympic gymnast Niall Wilson. Scott, how old's Niall now? He's late 20s. So he's late 20s, and Niall is broken, so he's had to have like surgeries and things like that. So that's ended his career in terms of like a competing gymnast. But he's gone to the Olympics. What? So he's 25, right? He's 25, and his career as a competing gymnast is over. But he owns 2 gymnastics facilities now. So he has a legacy.
Yeah.
But because he was so good, and because he managed to go to the Olympics prior to all of these injuries that he had, he managed to actually fulfill that passion, managed to do the Olympics, and then obviously just take a step back. So he was going to go to the Olympics this year, but then obviously COVID hit, everything was cancelled. And then he was just like, right, I'm going to announce my retirement from gymnastics.
Oh, man, that's gutting.
It is, isn't it? But he wanted to achieve Olympic status. He did. and it's not like he's crying about what he's done in his life, but
No.
he's still 25.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Wow. I like it's crazy to think because I'm going to be 24 this year, right? And obviously 25 next year. And I'm pretty much just getting started with bodybuilding, I feel.
Yeah.
And and obviously that sport, that's where you would end, and it's very tricky. And I'm just trying to think which one I suppose it's personal preference, but which one I would personally prefer, start young, live that life young, and then probably retire. You've got a legacy, and then you've got the rest of your life to do, or do what you want to do whilst you're young, and then go into it when you go into something a little bit older, which is something I did because when I was young, I was a couch potato. I just sat on my Xbox. You mentioned sport to me, I would run away. I wouldn't, because I wouldn't run. I would crawl away.
Roll out of your gaming chair.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
It is an interesting one. I suppose you've got to weigh up the pros and cons because I mean, I don't know if people haven't followed Jack Stanya, so he's another one that we're obviously talking about. So I coach Jack and I make sure that he's okay and that he's got his head screwed on because we've been together, training together in our little bubble since the first lockdown. And basically, Jack started assistance and he wanted to go back on assistance very recently. Now, I basically said to him, there is no way that I'm going to allow him back on assistance until I've seen his bloods. And I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah.
Because we looked at his bloods and his bloods were deranged, but in a very, very negative manner to the point where he's had to have, medical input at this point. Now, the thing is that it's the same kind of relation with gymnastics as it is with bodybuilding when it comes to this particular point in terms of health. Because when you're 25 and you're giving up a competitive sport in gymnastics, for example, it's not because you don't want to carry on, it's because you're injured.
Yeah.
And it's because your health is at risk. Now, it's the same thing with Jack. He was distraught about giving up competitive bodybuilding. But the fact is, it's like he said, I need to get my health sorted out first as a priority. And there is no question to that, which is great. But realistically, his career in bodybuilding has finished. Well, it isn't finished. He could still carry on doing it, for a hobby, or he can compete naturally should he wanted to, or something like that. Obviously, after the case, you've got to be 7 years drug-free and that kind of stuff in order to get back on stage. But he could still do that. But quite honestly, for now, it's the idea is that he's given up competitive bodybuilding at a young age. How old is Jack now? He's coming up to 25 as well, isn't he? He's 24, 25.
Oh, he's younger than me. He's about 1 or 2 years younger than me. He's about.
Oh, is he 22, 23 then?
He's about yeah. I think so. He's about 22, I think.
Right. So I mean, even at 22, and he hasn't been in the bodybuilding industry for 10 years, say.
No, yeah.
Whereas like Niall, who's an elite level Olympian, he's been in that particular industry for 22 years. So it's 22 years of a really high impact level sport, and it is going to take its toll on your skeletal system. You imagine all of like the shoulder dislocates that they have to do and the splits and, bend backwards and things like that. It's going to take its toll on your body.
Bend forwards.
Yeah, exactly. But it's exactly the same with drugs and bodybuilding, or strongman or what have you. You do something to your body to such an elite level, you are going to have repercussions from it. And it's about knowing the difference and being savvy enough to understand that before you take that next step.
Yeah.
This is very deep for a podcast. This is not like For the Love of Oats podcast.
I like getting deep. I do, because we're talking about real shit,
Real shit.
Real manure.
But anyway, moving on from that.
I was just going to say,
go on.
Is like people have different longevities in sport.
Yeah.
In a particular sport. Now, Jack's spoken quite openly about this, so I'm pretty sure you wouldn't mind me saying that Obviously he knew the health implications going into it, but he didn't know if it was going to be this early on that these health implications would happen.
Absolutely.
And that is something that people need to keep in mind. Like when you are starting some assistance again, you know, health implications could come at any point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a point that was heavily reiterated to me. And you know, seeing Jack's incident, I looked at it and I was like, right, okay, wow, this could really happen at any point because Jack had, you know, he was very on it with his health. You know, he wasn't negligent.
No.
He had 2 courses, but he took the proper precautions around it.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it ended in a position where, you know, if he was to carry on to get to the goal that he wanted to, he would have ended up very bad health wise.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to sort of understand with this, you know, an important perspective, because you see a lot of people who go, I'm just going to start off here, I'm just going to do it, I want to get really big or whatever. I want to turn into a pro. I'm going to start taking loads of stuff. Their mate might be able to get away with it. But them as an individual might not.
Yeah, everybody responds in a completely different manner.
Yeah.
You know, you may have like zero response to certain compounds, but then a hyper response to other compounds.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things that you need to consider before you start taking any kind of supplementation or any kind of assistance. But one of the biggest take-home points that everybody should take is that just don't start it too soon. Don't be an arsehole. You see?
Be an arsehole.
Don't be an arsehole. Tick off all of your boxes first in terms of nutrition, in terms of training. Learn all of the basics first, and then you can put the sprinkling on top.
Yeah, and just think, is what you want attainable natural? You know, and if it is, attain it naturally. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Exactly. Unless you have a big diet phase and then you lose your boobs, because they're not coming back. Unfortunately. I can speak from experience.
Yeah.
Mine went, and then it was just like, do you know what? No matter how much body fat I'm putting on, these boobs are not coming back. So I bought some.
Oh wow. Yeah, I might do that actually. You know.
You've already got big boobs.
Yeah, but imagine my side chest if I had some implants in.
Can you still do a side tricep pose?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you still do the whole twist?
That's my new tricep.
Yeah, nice. Obviously, we can't see it, but that's better. There you go. I've been seeing on a couple of on a couple of occasions some stories going on where people are like unable to do like the twists because they're so big. Do you know what I mean? Like in their off season.
I saw something very funny, you know. I was in a gym, again, I'm not going to name names, but I went in, I was a little bit younger, and I saw the gym's big guy, right, being coached by a bodybuilder who's a decent bodybuilder, right? And he goes in and he's doing some posing and struggling to do the side tricep. And he goes, I'm just too big. I can't do it. And the coach goes to him, you're not too big because I'm bigger than you and I can do it. You're immobile.
Brilliant.
So you need to work on that. Like if Big Ramy could do a side tricep, you can.
So true, right? So true.
And
what do you think? And no, what was I going to say then? I was going to ask you a question, and then it's just completely gone out of my head. That's really annoying.
Oh man, have you got?
Oh, it'll come back.
Okay. Do you want to ask me another question?
Yes. If you could invent an animal, what would it be? Has to be a new one. I put this on my story the other day, and I had people come back to me saying like pork. I'm like,
pork.
Yeah, that's not a new animal. Pork has been around for a very long time. Thousands of years, in fact.
I wouldn't identify like it as pork. I don't
Yeah,
need to go pork. You know,
pig, but pork.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't look at a cow and go, hmm, beef mince.
5% or 10%,
Oh, I don't know. It depends.
depending on what day you're on.
I'm a 5%er for life, you see.
You're a 5%er for life. Have you seen the new extra lean stuff though in Audi? It's now
Oh,
3%.
3%.
Mate, it's absolutely game changing.
You
It's
may as well,
so nice as well.
you may as well get turkey mince at that point.
Nah, turkey mince is less than 2%.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And it doesn't taste like beef.
So the animal that I would create is probably one that I could ride. One I know, yeah, this would be cool. One that I could ride on ground, and I could fly as well.
Okay, but would you be able to eat it?
I wouldn't want to eat this specific animal. If I wanted one if I wanted one for food, it would have to be like a combination of yeah, of beef and pork, really. And
But beef and pork?
it's got to have, it's got to have the flavor of like something like pork or something like duck or whatever, but the leanness of something like turkey.
Mm, interesting. So what would that be called?
Um,
Trying to think of that combination. So pork and turkey. It could be a perky.
pork, porky.
A porky. Perky porky. Oh dear Lord. Okay, I think I'm tired. So, in terms of like talking about energy and like shit things like this, where my brain is going a bit crazy. So I had the COVID vaccine last week. And it's only been the first injection that I've had. And I tell you what, oh my God, my arm was like the sorest it has ever been. And it was only a subcut injection. It's like your insulin needle type of things.
Yeah.
It was only this really tiny subcut injection. And my arm was really painful, like really painful.
Yeah. Wow.
And I felt like death for like 4 days.
4 days it lasted, yeah.
About 4 days. And I was still a little bit muggy headed as well. But my muggy head was more along the lines of like I could hardly focus properly, even though I did quite well. But everything around me was pissing me off. Like everything around me.
Really?
Like little noises, and Scott was talking to me and I was looking at him, and in my head I'm there thinking, if you don't shut the fuck up, I'm gonna go mad. It's horrible.
Are you sure you weren't like jabbed with Trent or
I don't know why my arm would be so sore though if it was Tren.
I don't know.
No, you don't get pip out of a subcut.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I had COVID. I had actual
I
COVID,
know.
and it didn't sound. It wasn't as bad as how that sounds.
Yeah.
I think I'll just prefer to have COVID again.
So you lost your sense of taste and smell, didn't you?
Yes.
How did you get on with your food when you lost your sense of taste?
Like I was able to get all my food in. I was the illness that I had the year before, where as you know, I had like a really bad stomach that I could not eat. That was like that's when I couldn't get food in. Whereas this wasn't too bad. But I was in obviously off season. Yeah, appetite's not great, and I'm just putting stuff in my mouth, and nothing was picking it up, and it was like, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try some shit. And so I got some paprika, and I poured it on a teaspoon. It was quite a big lump. I was like, I've actually got a little bit of footage. I filmed it. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this, and I went, put it on my tongue, and I was like, wow, this should be horrible right now. I tried it with cordial. I tried to have a sip of cordial. I was like, that's water.
That's literally nothing.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, I need to stop doing. I was like, I need to stop doing these tests because I will just collapse.
You get annoyed, don't you?
You what?
You get annoyed, don't you?
Yeah, it was frustrating. I was like, I just want to taste something, Molly had the same thing, obviously, and she ordered a takeaway. I was like, Mol, why have you ordered a takeaway? She goes, I want to see if I can taste it. I'm like, you won't. She had it and she was so disappointed. I was like, what do you think? What do you, why have you ordered this? You know,
It's a complete waste, isn't it?
I
The
know.
only thing that I can relate it to is like chewing sand,
Yeah.
because sand has like nothing in there. So I had wisdom teeth removal a few years back, and they damaged my lingual nerve on the left hand side. So basically, when they took my wisdom teeth out, because they were so impacted, they had to take part of my jawbone away,
Mm.
and they basically hit the lingual nerve, and it literally made half of my tongue, like almost like you can just cut your tongue in half, and it made it completely numb, and I lost all sense of taste on that left hand side of my tongue, which is where all of your taste buds are anyway. You haven't got any taste buds anywhere else, it's all in your tongue. So I was just like, this is fucking weird, because I can still talk. I didn't have a lisp or nothing like that, but if I ate on the left hand side of my mouth, I used to like bite my tongue and I was bleeding all over the place. I was like, oh, I didn't notice it. It was quite surreal. But if I ate on the right hand side, I could taste everything. It was really strange, but it was just like this very, very strange texture, which I could only explain as sand.
Yeah, it's so weird. What do you know? It was so weird, sort of losing the taste,
Mm.
like as well, and going through the process of losing the taste. And like Molly made me aware that I'd lost my taste. She goes, "I'm struggling to taste this. Have a taste of this." I was like, because quite often you just eat it, you don't think about the taste. I'm like,
Sure.
I actually can't taste, and I didn't realize I couldn't taste anything all day. You know. It's I don't know, the psychology of the actual texture in my mouth and whatever just carried it through, and I didn't really notice it too much. But once I noticed and I fully lost the taste, I was like, wow, I cannot stop thinking about this. You know, even small stuff like toothpaste and stuff like that. I would like I would spray, air freshener, and I'd be like, no, I can't smell anything. I was like, I might stink and I don't know, you know.
Yeah. Just make sure that you wash every day.
Yeah, I mean, washing is usually a priority for me. I'm
I
not
would say.
I'm not saying like, I'm just like, I'm just base it off my smell. Like, do I smell yet? No, I'm good. I could go for
Yeah, yeah. I'll just carry on.
all right.
Oh, very funny.
Oh man.
But anyway, so moving on from COVID, I think we've actually covered quite a lot of stuff already, and we've only been talking for like 26 minutes, 36 minutes.
We have. You know what? It's because we haven't done one of these in a while, and we haven't chatted in a while, so we just go.
Yeah, just go full on into all of like the crap.
Yeah.
So, do you want to know something funny? It isn't funny, but it's just a little bit of an update on me and my life, I suppose.
Okay.
So, I fractured my foot.
Okay.
And I've got a very, very beautiful, I know, I've got a very, very beautiful boot on my foot now. Show you the boot.
I got a stick in my boot. Oh wow!
I know, right?
Wow.
Actually looks like one of those Japanese sandals.
You're probably like average size.
I'm a little bit taller than I was, but the problem is that it's only on one foot. So I still have to kind of like,
Yeah.
choose my bearings.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you? Oh, was that when you dropped something on it?
No, do you know what? This foot, I swear to God, God doesn't like me to have this foot. I think I just need to get rid of it, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
But no, I was actually in the gym with Stanya, and I was moving the bench around in the rack. I cannot tell you how irritated it is to try and obviously everybody knows we're all training at home. It's just awkward, isn't it? And trying to like load things and blah, blah, blah. And I've got the world's heaviest bench. And I tried to lift it up and move it around. And as I did, I lost my balance and I just dropped the fucking bench and it went right onto my toe and it broke my toe immediately. I was like, piss.
Oh,
so that really hurt.
Did you have a little cry?
No, but I did swear quite a lot for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop swearing. And I mean, I can swear anyway. I do have the mouth of a fisherman, so I apologize. But even Stanya was really surprised at how much I swore and the fact that I didn't actually stop swearing. Because I was like, the pain's not going away.
Oh, so did you have to go to like A&E and obviously get that sorted?
Nah, because the problem is, right, the good thing is that I'm an orthopedic surgical nurse, so I know a lot about bones. And the thing is, they're not going to do anything for a broken toe. They're literally just going to kind of say, get on with it. Because you can't do anything for it. It's not like you can plaster it up or nothing like that. So I looked at it and it started to go really cold, and then it went like pale. And I'm like, okay, that's broken. And then I couldn't move it. So it was like, okay, it's definitely broken. So I just neighbor strapped it, and then it was absolutely fine. So within about 4 weeks, it was okay. And then I started to walk fine again. There was some very delightful bruising that came out. So it was very attractive. But then after that, I was all good. So I carried on and I cracked on the way that I did. And anyway, noticed that my dog started limping. So then I started limping. And I'm like, what the fuck's this all about? I've got a sympathy limp because I'm a dog. What is happening here? Until I actually realized that my foot was hurting quite a lot. And then I suffer with IT band syndrome, which is iliotibial band syndrome, which can literally knock me off my feet. So I actually have a pair of crutches at home anyway for when this circumstance does happen. And I thought, I'm just going to have to start walking with crutches. Maybe it's my IT band flare up and then it's just gone down into my foot, etc., etc. Yeah, no, it didn't happen so much so until I just kind of went, it's either going to be a stress fracture or it's going to be my ligaments. So I couldn't face it anymore. I went to A&E, and kudos to A&E. 2 hours I was in and out. I had my X-rays and I got seen, and yeah, it wasn't bad actually for 2 hours. So they got me out and they were like, yeah, okay, so there is a hairline fracture onto your foot. So we're going to give you a boot, and we'll bring you back into the fracture clinic in 2 weeks. Wow, great. So yeah, so that's exciting. So I'm walking the dog with a crutch. My dog still has a limp. He has been seen by the vets on a number of occasions, and he went back today, and basically it transpires, long story short, that he's probably going to have his toe amputated.
Oh shit.
What? I know, I'm very sad about it.
Nice sad, yeah.
Very sad. But he's an old dog. And I keep on thinking to myself, he's not an old dog. He's not an old dog. And it's like, yeah, actually, he's quite an old dog now. Yeah. But he's still a puppy because he still jumps around like an absolute knob.
Yeah.
But thankfully, and I'm going to say touch wood, I'm extremely distraught about the fact that my dog might have to have his toe amputated next week. But he's walking around in pain. So it's like, do you know what? If he's got to lose the toe to stop him being in pain, then I'd much prefer him to do that.
Will he still be functional,
though? Yeah, thankfully it's his external one. So I don't know why I've done that. It's his external one. It's his external or outward toe. So it's not weight bearing, little pinky. So it's not weight bearing. Okay. But, so that's all right.
So that's really an optional extra, really.
I think so, yeah. I think anybody's like little toe is an optional extra.
What would you say is the least important finger?
Ooh, good question. I would probably say the fourth finger.
I was thinking this, either that one you need in case you're angry, but yeah probably that one. Yeah.
I would go with the fourth finger because it's actually attached to the third finger anyway. And I've seen a lot of people who have literally had like no hands, and they've had a hand created, and they've just had like toes put onto their hands so they can actually use the pincer grip, and the pincers are just a thumb and a pinky. So I would definitely say that you need a thumb and a pinky. Yeah. The other three are, well, miscellaneous, I suppose.
Yeah. Do we really need 5 fingers?
That is going to be the title of the podcast.
Do we need 5 fingers?
Do you need 5 fingers? I've seen bodybuilders with like no hands or no fingers and that kind of thing, and they're really bloody good because they just use straps.
Yeah.
And hooks and things like that.
You don't need any fingers really if you've got a pair of straps. You just grip anything. It'll take a while to set up though. Strap.
It depends on what kind of like grip you've got, I suppose. Like if you've got hooks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Into the bar. Yeah.
You know,
That's quite good. And it takes all of like the pulling motion out from your bicep because you're not gripping.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
That is a killer back workout.
Oh wow, yeah, I don't think of it like that.
Ah, see?
That's,
Biomechanics.
there we go. Biomechanics. Biomechanics.
Biomechanically speaking, what is your favorite movement?
Biomechanically.
What do you really get a good feel of when you're training?
I feel like it's been a bit of a weird one for me, but the hack squat I just really love, especially on a decent hack squat. But when I started the hack squat, which is when I started working with AJ, he put it in. I didn't really use hack squats up until that point. And I started, I was thinking, wow, this is the weirdest shit ever. I can't do this. This does not suit me. My knees don't work. My knees hurt. Like, I just can't use a hack squat. Now, after repeatedly using it, it just feels perfect. Like, I feel like I am made to just hack squat.
That's good.
I feel like it's the jack squat.
The jack squat.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not made for a hack squat. I'm too little.
Yes, you need, well, yeah, what we started doing before the gyms closed is I was holding a step for you to hack squat.
Now you see, that works really well.
Yeah, yeah.
That did work really well, but I do have to have like a purpose-made hack squat.
Yeah. Would your movement be the bench?
The bench is very, very cool. I do love the bench, but I have to say no, because you don't really feel the bench. You know, and even though I love the bench because it is a passion of mine, you don't really feel the bench biomechanically. You just have to like fucking push hard and just hope that you don't shit yourself on the bench or let your ass come off or your head come off or your heels come off the floor. So it's a very technical movement if you can do it very, very well, but you don't feel it in terms of like a muscle pump. Recently, an upper back bias lat pull down has got to be my favorite mind muscle connection one.
Wow.
It's really good. I really like it. And I think, I don't know whether it's because I've got my cable, because my cable is fucking savage. Honestly.
Incredible.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Like all you need is that cable and knife, really.
Yeah, it is disgusting. But I mean, I'll put on like 50 kilos onto that cable stack. And I swear to God, if I did 50 kilos in the gym, that'd feel like nothing in comparison to what I've got in the garage at this moment in time. So maybe it is just that, but I just get an incredible pump into my upper back when I do that lat pull down or upper back pull down. It's really, really good. I do like it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have to try that. We'll do that. We'll do that when the gym's open. You have to.
We'll do that when gym's open.
Come on, stay awake, Nick.
I know, it's getting to that point. It's almost time for a coffee of a decaf variety because it's 10 to 3.
You're going to placebo yourself awake.
I'm going to placebo myself awake. That is exactly that.
I tell you what, like biomechanically, I'm not made to deadlift. It's the hip hinge, hip hinges for me are just terrible. And like they just felt, and they've never felt okay, really. But I tell you what, I have been doing recently. It's dumbbell RDLs.
So much better.
And I feel that I get DOMs every single time on my hamstring, and I didn't really get DOMs from an RDL. And I feel like, there's a couple of ways to go about if a movement doesn't quite fit your biomechanics. Say like if you can't squat right, probably try to find a variation or maybe try to stick with it for a little bit to see if you can, learn the movement pattern again, pattern it down, and then, that becomes a nice movement like the hack squat did for me.
Yeah.
As soon as I went on for the first time, like I said, I was like, this is not for me at all.
For sure. It's just that repeatedness over time and consistency in repeating, isn't it? So it's like I put a post on Instagram yesterday And it was literally about banging your head against a brick wall, trying to find the most ideal program in order to give you those magical gains. And you know what one of the biggest frustrating things is? The biggest frustration that I come up against is people who program hop and people who just kind of go, I'm bored, so I want a new program. And it's like, you're not going to make the kind of gains consistently if you keep on wanting to swap out some of the major movements as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Because what a lot of people need to consider, there's a time period of adjusting to that movement.
For sure.
And then you start progressing it. And then when you go on to a new movement, you take a couple of steps back to learn that movement. And then it takes a little bit of a while to then start progressing it and going upwards. And if you're constantly doing that, you're going to limit your progression quite a bit. Now, I know there was that principle, the old-fashioned principle of, you know, you want to shock your muscles, you want to shock your body and whatever by doing different workouts each time, or different movements each workout.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the case, you know. There's a large merit in keeping things nice and consistent, you know, having the exercise selection nice and consistent, and something that you could really just be progressive with.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a general population client and, you know, you're not really that enthralled about, well, you know, like competing or anything like that, or hitting some PBs or whatever, like the side of things, you just want to go in and just have some fun and move some shit and exercise, then yeah, okay, there's some merit to having a new program every 6 months, every 6 weeks or something like that, because it keeps the focus, doesn't it? So I know a lot of PTs who literally just kind of do like 6 to 8 week blocks, and then they'll do a whole new program. And then when they come back in the 6 to 8 weeks, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I've got DOMs. You know, my muscles are really, really sore. And it's just because they've been exposed to a new stimulus, but it keeps that general population client coming back. But if you're not of that mindset, if you're not of that ilk and you want to actually progress in certain lifts, like say, for example, you want to be a powerlifter, well, guess what? You're going to have to squat, bench and deadlift. I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to do that. So I had a powerlifter come to me who wanted to make the elite level, actually just like move up. They wanted to level up. They wanted to level up their game. And it's like they said, I don't like squatting. It's like, well, do you want to compete? Yeah. Well, then you're going to have to squat. You know, it's powerlifting and it's known as SPD. The S stands for squat. So you have to kind of squat if you want to be a powerlifter. Obviously we talk things through.
Powerlifting, you know, if you don't like those three, you've got to love those 3 movements. You know, if you want to be a very good powerlifter, that's why I want to be a powerlifter, because I can't deadlift for shit. So that, you know, I may be able to do a semi-decent bench, but if I haven't got those other 2 movements, then it's kind of redundant, really.
Well, not really, because I'm a bench only lifter.
Yeah, I mean, I only really bench incline as well. I don't know if they do an incline bench competition.
They don't do an incline bench competition. No, it is just a flat bench. It is just flat bench.
I do miss flat bench. I used to love flat bench, but my shoulders just started feeling weird on it. And what do you think of the flat bench for bodybuilding?
It's pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I think the flat barbell bench for bodybuilding purposes, if you're going to use it as a hypertrophic response, then you've got to change your leverages. You cannot powerlift bench as a bodybuilder. You're just going to get injured. And even if you were to do it for multiple amounts of reps, because the thing is, right, when you come into a rep range with your bench, right, when you're coming down into a powerlifting bench, you have got to come past that point of being safe in terms of your anterior delt. So you're going to really overstretch it, and you do, and you're in an unnatural position at this point. You can't see me, I'm like a ninja because I've got black on black, so you can't actually see that difference, but you know what I mean. With an incline bench for bodybuilding, obviously your plane, when you're bringing the bar down to you, is different. So you're in a different leverage position, but also when you're doing it, you also stop about 2 inches above your chest. So you're not going to come all the way down and cause all of these impingement issues into your shoulders, which is the reason why if you were doing a complete touching your chest barbell bench press on the flat, that's the reason as to why you would have those issues with your shoulders, because realistically, a human being is not meant to be in this position.
Right. Okay. See, this is an important thing to touch on, because a lot of people think you have to be, if you're going to do the movement properly, you have to touch it to your chest.
Mm.
Like
Well,
that's
you do as a powerlifter.
yeah. Obviously, as a powerlifter, I mean, like just as if you want to perform that movement properly across anything, you've got to touch it to your chest. Like, and I've actually seen those form police.
Oh,
There's different pages of it, right? So and this one particular form police who has just gotten someone who's benching, and because they're stopping about there,
mm-hmm.
They've been put on that page saying depth not achieved.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's all down to your own personal biomechanics. So
Yeah, it is. It is. I've noticed that with point there, I'm still get. I've done both, right?
yeah,
But I've noticed with leaving like just a couple of inches, I can keep constant tension on my chest.
yeah.
I can feel it more. I feel it more the day after. I have constant tension. If I bring it lower, I'm getting issues with my shoulders, like you mentioned. And again, I'm not having that tension on my chest
Yeah,
consistently.
exactly.
That's for myself.
Mm, mm. And this is the point. This is the whole point about being a bodybuilder, is to break down muscle fibers. You shouldn't actually be looking at moving a weight from A to B. The amount of times that I get form videos sent over to me and I'm just like, okay, great, slow the fuck down. And that is literally sometimes my feedback, because it's like the movement is great. Slow the fuck down. Because if you are just shifting weight from A to B, you are not going to do anything in terms of your muscle structure. You're not going to do anything in terms of breaking muscle down in order to rebuild it. It's the same when you're doing, like, I mean, you might as well just be a powerlifter if that's the case. It's the same like when you're doing heavy doubles or heavy triples, right? That's not going to do anything for hypertrophy responses whatsoever. However, it does have neurological stimulus, because this is the reason as to why you see powerlifters who are teeny tiny and yet they can shift some fucking weight. It's not because they have a bigger muscle, because they don't, but they do have the neurological adaptation because they've been exposed to that stimulus. So if you think about it, right, the body is really fucking clever. The whole body is made up of really clever atoms and circulatory systems and neurological systems and blah, blah, blah. But if you expose your body to a stimulus that could potentially kill you, it builds back stronger. So if you have a look at a squat and you do a heavy triple on a squat and then back off and then do like, 2 sets of 10 to 12 and then maybe a rest pause or something like that in a squat. Don't do a rest pause in a squat. It's fucking horrible. I'm nasty. I did it to one of my guys.
You feel it in the ass. You do.
Oh, totally. But yeah, so if you actually did that triple, that will give you the neurological adaptation to hit your sets of 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 15 plus with more gusto, because your body has then been exposed to a heavier weight in which it thinks, if I do not adapt and that happens again, I'm going to die because I'm going to get squished. So the neurological strength overtakes the muscular strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So bodybuilders who do heavy triples, there is a time and a place in order to do those heavy triples. It wouldn't necessarily be all the time, but it would be decent to expose yourself to a much heavier weight in order to get that central nervous system and neurological adaptation input into the strength matters. Because if you can lift a heavier weight with good form for more repetitions, you're going to grow a bigger muscle.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why keeping movements consistent is important, so you can develop that neurological adaptation with that movement. Because again, if you're not, you will have to keep regaining that neurological adaptation with that movement, and again, you're just going.
Exactly. And it's the same with your food as well. It's like, I can eat a lot of food. I mean, I've always been able to eat a lot of food, but I am eating a ridiculous amount of food at this moment in time. I was speaking to Stanya about it earlier, and it's like my post-workout food is an enormous amount of cream of rice, and I love it. But when I told him the amount that I ate, just in terms of like my post-workout meal, he was like, how the fuck can you do that? Because I don't eat that much. But it's because I've been exposed to the stimulus and just gradually just started increasing more and more food as you go along. If you're just going to whack in 200 grams of rice, for example,
Yes.
you're going to feel bloated. You're not going to have that time to adapt to it. You're going to get fats, you know, and all the rest of it. You've got to have that slow time period in order to do it.
Exactly. Now, something I see some people doing is incrementing their food by big jumps, and this will just limit the amount that they could be progressive with their food.
What do you classify though as a big jump?
You know, about like 700 calories.
Yeah, that's a bit too much.
You know, yeah.
I would say that's a bit too much. Again, though, it's all relative, and it is all relative at certain points. So it's like if you were coming out of contest prep, for example, a big boost of like 700 calories is like nothing. It's going to touch. It's not going to touch.
Yeah, you want to make those big jumps, you know, so you can
absolutely
recover. I was more referencing like someone who's already in an off season, already a bit into a gaining phase, and haven't changed the food for a while, and then like, oh, time to change the food, boom, big jump. And some coaches would do that because it's very easy to do, you know. It requires less work for them, and I've seen coaches do this where I've literally seen it, and you could fuck up someone's digestion and the rest of it, and their appetite, and crash all that stuff because they've made that big jump. Now, if you make like little increments, you know, you get a little bit more longevity with how progressive you can be with your food, and you're going to crash your insulin sensitivity.
Yes. Well, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're constantly putting, like if you put 500 calories of carbs in when you're in an off season, you know, and you do that and you keep doing that, surely that it's going to be a lot worse for your insulin sensitivity than incrementing your carbs at a moderate level.
Not particularly.
Do you not think?
I know. Just because that's the way that the pancreas works. So if you are a big bodybuilder, for example, and you can take on, like I know big guys who are taking in like 900 grams of carb a day. I mean, how much do you have? Like 700?
I've changed my nutrition, but I was up to 700.
Okay, so 700 grams worth of carbs that were going in. And did you have any kind of issue with your blood glucose?
Yeah, so this is why I've recently changed it. So essentially, long story short, I'm sort of defeeding at the moment. I've dropped my food down to sort of resensitize myself because my appetite's gone. I was eating, then wanting to have a nap straight after.
Right.
And it just went into a bad place. So to sort of get that back into a better place, I'm just dropping my food for a little bit and then waiting for my digestion to get better, my appetite to get better, and the rest of the biofeedback, and then I can increase the food.
So it might not necessarily just be the fact that your carbs went high, which is the reason as to why you were feeling like you needed a nap and that kind of thing, and that your insulin sensitivity was being affected at that point. It might just be because of the sheer volume of food that you're having to try and get down into your digestive system that was causing you to feel like you needed a nap. Like before you got into that amount of food, do you remember those people who had like a big Sunday roast and then they were just like, oh my God, now I need to have a nap? You know, that's not because they were eating over 700 grams of carbs or because their pancreas was under stress, because that's realistically what it is. I don't realistically like to call it insulin sensitivity. I like to call it like pancreatic sensitivity because it's your pancreas that does all the work. So there's a lot of people who do actually not like the addition of exogenous insulin because they just kind of think, oh, it's really bad for you, you know, or even metformin or something like that, which is going to help with your pancreatic response to a higher amount of carbs. But there's a lot of different ways as to why you can use insulin, and that is to literally give your pancreas a break from overworking so hard. It can also be down to the fact that you are a lot bigger now. So being a bigger person, you are going to have some issues because of the amount of body fat ratio that you're having. So if you accumulate more body fat, for example, you're going to have a poorer response, which is the reason why we obviously test blood glucose.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do agree with your biofeedback being the way that it is. You're feeling sluggish, you're tired, your appetite's gone, and that kind of thing. This is what happens in the off season, where
Yeah.
people do need to take little break backs, don't they? So,
Yeah.
one of the things that I do get annoyed about as well is where coaches literally just make increases for their off season or for the people's off season, and they literally just do it from carbohydrates. And it's like, well, you can also increase calories from fats,
Yeah. Yeah.
which are also very important on par. Now, I understand that carbs are protein sparing, and all the rest of it, and there is good merit to it, but it shouldn't always be from carbs, every single increase. You can use fat within a certain parameter, of course, because you don't want to go too high on fat, because there's only one place for that fat to deposit, and that's lipid cells. So again, you've got to be really careful as to where you're going to be depositing these extra things and extra nutrients, but it comes with experience in where to increase things and why, and that kind of thing. But it's not just, I wouldn't necessarily say that everybody's going to have a poorer insulin response just because they're on a higher amount of carbohydrates. I mean, I've got strong men who are on like nearly 1,000 grams of carbohydrates, and their fasted blood glucose levels are like 4.1.
Yeah, absolutely, not at all. That is what I was trying to get at, really. Yeah, I know people could go on very high amount, like you're on a high amount of carbs, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Like you could do it. Now with me, I've probably just been on a decent amount of carbs for a long time, and I've just been in a surplus for a long time, and that's probably my body's pushing in one direction, and when you push into a direction for too long and you're progressing with it, your body starts to tell you to fuck off. It can happen when you're in a deficit as well.
Totally, yeah.
I just think if you are making rather big jumps with your food, your biofeedback's going to bite back a little bit sooner than you want it to.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Because you just won't be able to efficiently digest and have a load of bloat and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's really where I was trying to get at. Is like, there's a lot of people, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it. I've literally seen. I've seen the client, I've seen the coach, and I've seen the food that they've done it, and they've come to me and they've gone. My digestion's now gone to shit. I was hungry before. I've had me increase in food. It's gone to shit.
Yeah, you got to be careful, the gut can tell you so many things as well. Like if you get some bloating, I tell my guys all the time, it's like, if you are bloating, I need to know about it. Do not keep that shit quiet until check-in day. I need to know about it, because the gut can tell us a lot, and especially when it comes to like stress. The gut is a finicky little bastard, and if you're stressed, your gut will tell you about it. You're either going to be constipated, you're going to have the shits, or you're going to be bloated. All of these things we can obviously have a look at. Yeah. But I'm going to interject because I've just seen the time and I'm late for another meeting.
Right. Okay. Cool. Right. So we'll wrap up here. We will start making these a regular. I do promise. I have been a little bit busy. I've fallen off with the podcast a little bit, but we are going to be back with regular For the Love of Oats. So you will be seeing a lot more of our pretty faces. So,
Speak about yourself at that point. I look like shit at the minute.
So do I, and that's why we are team shit.
Team shit. We like that. Team shit.
Team shit. Right. Okay. So that is all from us. Don't be an arsehole, and I will catch you next time.
Aight.
Aight.